A brand new electric car. It costs about $4,000. When videos of it first appeared online, people laughed. They called it a toy, a golf cart, a joke. Then something unexpected happened. The jokes slowly disappeared. Instead, people began comparing one number, $4,000. Not horsepower, not range, not luxury, just one price. And somehow, a tiny car that almost nobody wanted to own became something millions wanted to talk about. Because this isn't really the story of a cheap car, it's the story of why a cheap car suddenly makes America look expensive. The number that changed the conversation. The vehicle itself isn't remarkable. It's small, slow, simple. Almost everything about it looks ordinary. If someone removed the price tag, it would probably disappear into the endless stream of strange vehicles that appear online every day. But the moment people hear one number, the entire conversation changes. $4,000. That number forces an entirely different comparison, not against another small electric car, not against a luxury SUV, but against everyday life. A used pickup with high mileage, several years of monthly car payments, or sometimes just the options people no longer feel they have. At first, the comments followed a familiar pattern. People laughed at the design. They questioned the safety. They joked about the tiny wheels. They compared it to golf carts, neighborhood vehicles, and children's toys. Nothing about that reaction was surprising. The internet laughs at unusual things every day. But this time, the jokes didn't stay in the comments for very long. A different conversation quietly replaced them. Instead of asking whether the vehicle was impressive, people began imagining where they would actually drive it. To work, to the grocery store across town, to pick up a prescription, to visit family a few miles away. Nobody claimed it could replace every vehicle. Nobody argued it belonged on every highway. Yet more and more people could picture a place for it in their daily lives. That was the first clue that this story was becoming something much larger than one inexpensive car. When the same idea appears again and again, it stops looking like coincidence. People weren't comparing dreams, they were comparing budgets. The vehicle hadn't changed, its performance hadn't changed, its appearance hadn't changed. Only the way people looked at it had changed. And that raises a question worth investigating. What changed first? The car or the people looking at it? When enough starts feeling different. For decades, the American car market moved in one direction. Every new generation became bigger, more powerful, more comfortable, more connected. Every year seemed to add another screen, another feature, another upgrade. More became the expectation, and higher prices followed close behind. For a long time, that trade seemed normal. But listen carefully to how ordinary people describe their daily driving. The destinations are surprisingly ordinary: driving to work, picking up groceries, taking children to school, visiting relatives, running errands. Most of these trips don't require extraordinary performance. They require reliability, convenience, and a vehicle that's simply available when needed. That's why this little $4,000 car created such an unusual reaction. Not because it looked better, not because it promised luxury, but because it encouraged people to ask a different kind of question. Instead of asking, "What's the best car I can buy?" many began wondering, "What do I actually need?" Those two questions sound similar, but they lead to completely different answers. The more that question spreads, the less this story becomes about one inexpensive vehicle. It becomes a story about expectations, about affordability, about the distance between the cars people are offered and the cars they believe they can realistically afford. And before we can understand why a $4,000 vehicle sparked that conversation, we first have to understand something much bigger. When did basic transportation become one of the most expensive purchases in everyday American life? Where did the price go? The more people talked about the $4,000 car, the less they talked about the car itself. Instead, another question kept appearing. If one company can build a brand new vehicle for around $4,000, why does buying almost any new vehicle in America feel so much more expensive? It's an uncomfortable question, because the answer isn't hidden inside one factory. It's hidden inside an entire system. Think about how a new vehicle reaches a customer. Long before anyone turns the key, thousands of decisions have already been made. What materials will be used, how much technology should be included, how many safety systems are required, how powerful should the engine be. Every decision adds value, but every decision also adds cost. One upgrade rarely changes the final price by much. Hundreds of upgrades do. Now imagine that process repeated over decades. Every new generation becomes larger, more capable, more comfortable, more connected. Each improvement makes sense on its own. Consumers enjoy quieter cabins, better crash protection, more convenience, more technology. The problem isn't any single improvement. The problem is what happens when every improvement arrives with another increase in price. Eventually, something unexpected happens. The industry keeps building better vehicles, but many buyers stop feeling closer to owning one. The distance between product and affordability slowly grows, not overnight. Not because of one company, not because of one decision, but because thousands of small decisions all move in the same direction. And that raises another question. If vehicles became better every year, why do so many people feel they became harder to reach? The cost. No one sees. When most people look at a window sticker, they see one number, the purchase price. But owning a vehicle has never been just about buying it. It also means financing it, insuring it, maintaining it, fueling it, repairing it, living with it for years. That's why affordability feels different today than it did decades ago. It's no longer one payment. It's a collection of payments, monthly financing, insurance premiums, registration fees, maintenance costs, fuel expenses. One by one, each amount may seem manageable. Together, they create a much larger commitment than many households expected. This is why the $4,000 vehicle caught so much attention, not because everyone wanted that exact car, but because it reminded people that another way of thinking might still exist. A simpler vehicle, a lower price, fewer financial commitments. Whether that idea is practical for everyone isn't the point. The important part is that people immediately recognize the appeal of simplicity, and that's where this investigation begins to change. Perhaps the biggest surprise isn't that someone managed to build a very inexpensive vehicle. Perhaps the bigger surprise is how quickly millions of people started asking whether they really needed everything modern cars now include. Because once that question enters the conversation, the story is no longer about one $4,000 car. It's about the choices that gradually transformed basic transportation into one of the largest financial commitments in everyday American life. And to understand why that happened, we have to look beyond engineering and into the business of selling cars. When cars stopped being just transportation, somewhere along the way, the purpose of a car quietly began to change. It was no longer expected to simply move people from one place to another. It also had to entertain, protect, connect, impress, reflect someone's lifestyle. Each new model promised more comfort, more technology, more convenience, more reasons to justify a higher price. None of those things were bad on their own. The question is, what happened when they all became standard? Walk through almost any new car showroom today. Large touchscreens, heated seats, ventilated seats, wireless charging, premium sound systems, panoramic glass roofs, advanced driver assistance, power lift gates, digital dashboards. Many buyers genuinely enjoy these features. Many use them every day. But imagine removing every badge from those vehicles. Would every buyer still choose the same options? If they also had to remove $10,000 or $20,000 from the price, that's a much harder question. The $4,000 car does something unusual. It strips away almost everything people have come to expect. No luxury, no prestige, no promise of status, just the basic ability to travel from one place to another. Ironically, that's exactly why it caught so much attention. It reminded people of a question they rarely ask anymore. Where does transportation end? And where does luxury begin? That question matters because expectations shape markets. If buyers continue demanding larger vehicles with more technology, manufacturers will continue building them. But if enough people begin asking for something simpler, the market eventually notices, not because companies suddenly become generous, because demand changes, and history has shown that industries always follow demand eventually. But that creates another mystery. If so many people say they only need basic transportation, why aren't more affordable options sitting in dealership showrooms today? The business behind the price building. A car is one challenge. Building a business around that car is another. Automakers don't simply compete to sell vehicles. They compete to remain profitable. That changes almost every decision made long before a customer walks into a dealership. Imagine two vehicles. One sells for $4,000, the other sells for $40,000. Both require engineering, factories, workers, shipping, marketing, dealer networks, customer support. The costs don't increase 10 times simply because the selling price does. Which vehicle creates more room for profit? The answer is obvious. That doesn't mean expensive vehicles are overpriced. It means businesses naturally focus on products that generate stronger returns. Over time, that logic changes the entire market. Manufacturers invest more resources into larger vehicles. Dealers earn more from higher-priced models. Financing becomes a bigger part of the purchase. Advertising celebrates premium features. Consumers gradually become accustomed to seeing higher prices as normal, not because someone forced them to, because that's what surrounded them year after year. Slowly, the idea of an inexpensive new vehicle begins to feel unrealistic, even unusual. That's why the $4,000 car creates such an uncomfortable contrast. It doesn't prove that every vehicle should cost $4,000. It doesn't erase differences in quality, safety, performance, or regulations. But it does expose something many people hadn't questioned before. If a basic vehicle can still exist somewhere, why does it feel almost impossible to find one here? That isn't a question about engineering, it's a question about markets. And once you start looking at the market instead of the car, the story becomes much bigger than anyone expected. The question was never about China by now. The $4,000 car has almost faded into the background, not because it became less interesting, but because it accomplished something far more important. It changed the question. The conversation no longer begins with, "Is this a good car?" Instead, it begins with, "Why does this price feel so impossible?" That's a very different kind of discussion. For years, the global auto industry competed over horsepower, luxury, technology, performance, bigger screens, longer range, more capability. The assumption was simple: build a better vehicle and customers would gladly pay more. For many buyers, that remains true, but the reaction to this tiny vehicle suggests something else is happening at the same time. Another group of people is asking a different question, not what's the best car available, but what's the most affordable way to stay mobile? Those aren't competing ideas. They are two completely different markets. That's why this story shouldn't be reduced to America versus China. Different countries build vehicles under different economic conditions, different regulations, different labor markets, different consumer expectations. Comparing one sticker price to another without acknowledging those differences oversimplifies a much more complex picture. The real takeaway isn't that one country has discovered a secret formula. It's that millions of people are paying closer attention to affordability than they have in years. That shift in attention may become more important than any individual vehicle ever built. The little $4,000 car didn't force anyone to change their opinion. It simply reminded people that another question was possible. And sometimes, changing the question changes everything. Why America looks expensive. Imagine showing someone two photographs. The first is a modern pickup loaded with technology. The second is a tiny electric car with almost nothing inside. Without prices, most people already know which one they'd rather own. Now add the numbers. One costs around $4,000, the other costs many times more. Suddenly, the comparison feels different. Not because either vehicle changed, because the price changed the story. Price has a remarkable way of reshaping expectations. A product that once looked ordinary can suddenly appear extraordinary, not because it improved, but because everything around it became more expensive. That's exactly what happened here. The $4,000 car didn't become a symbol because it was perfect. It became a symbol because it highlighted a growing gap between what many people need and what many new vehicles cost. America still builds some of the world's most capable trucks, some of the safest family vehicles, some of the most advanced electric cars ever produced. None of that disappears because an inexpensive vehicle exists somewhere else. But capability isn't the only measure that matters. Affordability matters too. And when affordability begins to disappear, people naturally start looking for alternatives, even imperfect ones. That doesn't mean they'll buy them. It means they'll ask why those alternatives feel impossible to find at home. Perhaps that's the biggest lesson hidden inside this little car. It was never powerful enough to change the global auto industry. It was never luxurious enough to redefine what people wanted to drive. It never needed to be. Its real impact came from exposing a question that had been quietly growing for years. When did basic transportation become so expensive that a $4,000 vehicle stopped looking ridiculous and started looking reasonable? Maybe that's why this story spread so quickly, not because people suddenly wanted less, but because more and more people are wondering whether they can still afford enough. And that may be the most important question facing the future of the American automobile. Not who can build the cheapest car, but how to keep everyday transportation within reach of ordinary families.